So it occurs to me that some of the younger Transformers fans might be interested in watching the original 1984 cartoon, but are unsure of what to expect with it. So I thought I'd do a little video to get people prepared for taking the plunge. Time for a new type of video from me. Time for a primer. I didn't mean for that to be a pun, but I will accept it as one. Before all this starts, I need to warn you that you should be ready for some serious 80s cheese. Transformers is probably the 80s kids cartoon that holds up the best when compared to its contemporaries, but it still is cut from that mold. You need to enjoy this like you enjoy professional wrestling, as far as I understand professional wrestling. If you can't let yourself get swept up in some nonsense, this show won't be for you. So the first thing you might notice about this show is that Optimus is portrayed very differently in this show than has become standard later. This is because of the original 1986 movie having remained so thoroughly ingrained in the popular consciousness. In that movie, including the Arise Rodimus Prime line, which is spoken long after Optimus Prime is dead, Optimus Prime has a total of 153 spoken words. For reference, the average length of one of my scripts is 2,300 words, which typically translates out to a 7.5-minute video at my pace. For further reference, this script was already 2 words longer than all of Optimus Prime's dialogue the first time I said "for reference." No joke, his lines in the movie all boil down to: he gives an order, he gives a second order, he explains the order, he then gives a third order, he gives a fourth order, he makes a declaration, makes a threat to Megatron, one line of banter with Megatron, a second line of banter with Megatron, a declaration of never, and final words on his deathbed. Essentially, what this all means is that Optimus Prime didn't have any chance to display any of the character he was known for during the course of the movie. Since the only real screen time he had during the movie was a horrific battle, all he had time to be was serious, portentous, and dramatic. And since this movie is so well remembered, that kind of overwrote all of his characterization from previous in the franchise. Now, Optimus Prime is basically only ever allowed to be a serious walking platitude dispenser. So I guess if you watch the show, just get ready for a happier, friendlier Prime. Next up is going to be a little confusing. So for the first 2.5 episodes, all the Cybertronians can fly like Superman. Halfway through the third episode, the Autobots lose the ability to fly when Optimus, who had been flying everywhere up to that point, turns to the Sideswipe and demands to be given his jetpack. The Decepticons retain the ability to fly throughout the series, and it is later explained that flight was a military adaptation built into the Decepticons, thus explaining their ability to do it. This also makes sense for the Autobots built throughout the series run, as characters like the Dinobots have the ability to fly. They were built after the war, so of course they would be given all the best advantages that could be given. This, however, will not stop random Autobots from using the ability to fly every now and then for no discernible reason, largely due to animation errors, which is the next thing on the chopping block. Get ready for those. If you are old enough, you can make a drinking game out of it, and then die from alcohol poisoning by the end of the first episode, because there are a lot of animation errors. Typically, you are going to find that characters get miscolored, most of which happens to Starscream because he is the repaint king. Sometimes there's just no excuse though, like all blue Optimus Prime. Next thing to understand, particularly in regards to the first season, is all the superpowers. Most characters in G1 have some kind of superpower and sometimes one-off abilities, but more often than not, it is a unique superpower belonging to an individual character. Stuff like Skywarp can teleport, Trailbreaker can create force fields, Mirage can turn invisible, Hound can make holograms, Soundwave can read minds, and Brawn has super strength. As the seasons went on, fewer characters were introduced with superpowers like this, though the ones already introduced retained those powers. As for the one-off abilities, would you believe that Prime's famous axe and Megatron's mace are some of these? What's weird is most of the one-off things are hand-based. Jazz's hand becomes a grappling hook, and Ironhide has the ability to fire liquid nitrogen out of his fingertips. It's all just slightly strange. Really, the most normal thing is that Ironhide has a super laser in his trunk. Next up, you should be prepared for this to not quite be the Optimus Prime show like you are probably expecting. Yes, Optimus is very prominent throughout the series, but he was mostly just the leader. Hell, the person who defeats the Decepticons at the end of the first story arc is Mirage, and it's kind of like that with most of the episodes. The show will focus on some other characters with Optimus Prime as leader in the background. It's part of what led children to focus on him as a father figure. He was there leading the heroes, not hogging the spotlight. And be prepared not to spend too much time with any of them. Unlike modern shows that tend to be made in CG, the creation cost of new characters in traditional animation is basically the same as just animating already drawn characters. So basically, every episode is going to follow someone new on an adventure. And don't worry, G1 was kind of the king of conveying characterization in 10 minutes or less, so no one really feels like a blank slate despite so many different characters who have to share the spotlight. So yeah, get ready for other people to get to do the majority of the cool stuff. Optimus Prime is still cool, but he's not the action and plot hog he becomes after they kill him off in the original movie. Get ready for actually useful humans too. Humans are a sore spot for a lot of Transformers fans because people seem to be under the impression we want the shows and movies to be about them. But if it were the humans from the original show, that wouldn't be too bad. Characters like Chip Chase who can use computers better than any Cybertronian, scientists who come up with miracle devices that the Decepticons steal for an advantage in the war, but the most of which has to be Spike. The common joke is that Spike is like the Autobots' blonde girlfriend, constantly in need of saving, but did you know that Spike is in fact super strong, lifting boulders the size of his entire body with ease, and being the first to run into battle against the Decepticons carrying guns literally bigger than he is? I don't want to oversell this, but Spike is a badass, ready to kill the shit out of some cons. Next up, very specifically, Transformers Season 1 is an absolutely no girls allowed affair. One or two will show up as a besieged local with few speaking lines, but for the most part, you are going to be hard-pressed to know that girls exist at all. Another thing that you are going to need to get ready to experience is Megatron full-on, no question, dying like 3 times, and then coming back the next episode like, "Megatron, didn't you die in a nuclear explosion?" And Megatron being like, "Only pussies die from nukes." Oh. And this is Rumble, and this is Frenzy. And if you argue otherwise, you are just wrong. I don't care what the toys were called. 1, more people watched the show than bought the toys. And 2, what idiot named the purple one Frenzy and the red one Rumble? Red is the Frenzy color. Why do we even need to have this argument when there is an obvious correct answer? So yeah, I think that's really everything that will help you get G1 Season 1. If you want to see where it all began, you kinda have to just start. To be clear, I don't think I've quite hammered down the format of the primer with this video just yet, so if you think the way I got this structured wound up being useless, please tell me. Anyways, that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. So I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think might be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.